In this problem, you're being asked whether each of these statements is always true, sometimes true, or never true. And each of the four statements that you're given here are all talking either about addition or subtraction. Now, whereas when we do these types of problems with multiplication and division, we can always know what the combination will give us in terms of whether our answer should be positive or negative. When it comes to adding and subtracting, we really have to look a little bit more closely at the numbers. So I'm going to show you some ways that we can do that. And the longer you do these, the more you'll start understanding what rules are really consistent and which ones you really have to think through a little bit more as well. But we're going to do that by thinking through all of them right up front. All right, so we're going to tackle our first statement here. And the first statement says a negative number plus a negative number, and that says it's a negative number. But I don't care what it says it is yet. All I care about is the fact that it's a negative plus a negative. Because before I'm worrying about seeing what it is based on their statement, I'm going to decide myself what it should be. So a negative plus a negative. A great way to tackle these if you don't instantly know what it should be is to come up with a couple examples. And so a negative plus a negative. I'm going to grab a couple simple numbers here. I was working recently with a lot of examples that were 5 and 3, so I'm going to just stick with the 5 and the 3. So what if I do a negative 5 plus a negative 3? What does that give me? Well, that gives me a negative 8. Okay, so I know that it could equal a negative. The question is, does it always equal a negative? Basically, what I've done so far is I've shown, well, it's not going to be that one. It's not going to be a never true. But I can't know yet, based just on that, whether it's always or sometimes true. And the way with addition and subtraction, where it does vary, is that if you change the order of the numbers, sometimes that will change a result. So let's try that out here. So I'm, instead of negative 5 plus negative 3, going to make it negative 3 plus negative 5. If I do that problem and actually check it out, that ends up also giving me a negative 8. It gave me the exact same thing, which tells me then it's not changing based on the order. And because of that, it will always equal a negative. And so, because we're looking to see, does it always equal a negative? And the answer is yes, then we're going to say this one is always true. And with that one nailed down, we can now go and take a look at our next one, which is a negative number minus a positive number. And so I'm just going to start by saying what that gives me. So again, I'm going to grab my same numbers that I was using before as an example. So I'm going to do a negative number, so a negative 5, and this one's minus, and then I need to do a positive number, so I'm going to go with the positive 3. So negative 5 minus 3, that is negative 8 again. Okay, what if I switch those around? What if I instead make it negative 3 minus 5? What's that going to give me? That is also negative 8, which actually just told us two things. First of all, it told us that this statement up here is always true. But we happen to also answer one other thing. The last problem, I was getting negative 8 every time. In this problem, I'm still also getting the exact same number of negative 8, which also means that these two statements are actually the same. To say a negative plus a negative is the same thing as saying a negative minus a positive. So adding a negative and subtracting a positive end up being the same thing, as it so turns out. And that's where you might start learning some more general rules that apply to these as you go. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at our next one. So in this one, we have a positive number plus a negative number. So I want to see what happens when I do a positive plus a negative. All right, so again, I'm going to grab my same numbers. So I'm going to do 5 plus, and then I need a negative number, so I'm going to do plus negative 3. So 5 plus negative 3 gives me a positive 2. All right, I'm going to try switching those around now. What if I do a positive 3 plus a negative 5? What's that give me? Well, that would actually give me negative 2. So notice, when I did it in one order, I got a positive number. When I did it in the other order, I got a negative number. Because of that, this one is not consistent. It's asking us, is it a negative number? Well, it was here, but it wasn't here, which means that this statement is sometimes true. So we found that it is true in some cases and it's not true in other cases, hence sometimes true. And then that brings us to our last statement here, which is a positive number minus a positive number. And so once again, we're going to try this out. So a positive minus a positive. Let's try 5 minus 3 first. 5 minus 3 is a positive 2. Let's switch the order. 3 minus 5. 3 minus 5 equals negative 2. And so like the last one, we saw that depending on the order of the numbers, it might be positive and it might be negative. Therefore, this one also will sometimes be a negative number. And therefore we answer sometimes true for it.